The United Nations Security Council has been hearing a briefing on the situation in Libya. That comes amid pressure from the European Union for a unified government there. The EU recently signed a deal with Libya to curb the flow of migrants into Europe, but leaders like Germany's Angela Merkel says it's crucial Libya's political troubles are resolved for the deal to be effective. There is currently a UN arms embargo in place in Libya, which Egypt has been trying to have lifted. Egypt has also been leading mediation efforts to resolve the impasse between the UN-backed government in the west of Libya and the parliament in the east of the country. Well, let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from New York by our UN correspondent, Nick Harper. Nick, what is the latest out of that UN Security Council briefing on Libya?
Well, in this briefing, the UN Security Council members heard from the head of UNSMIL, the mission in Libya, Martin Kobler. He essentially detailed a good news, bad news situation. He said that there had been many gains made within the course of the last year. He detailed some of those, for example, the fact that oil production has now increased and therefore gives the country more revenue. And there's also a unified budget, all of it helping the economy. But he did say that the services within the country, like infrastructure, health services, were badly deteriorating and needed urgent attention. On the security side of things, he said that a year ago the Islamic State were gaining territory. Now they have no territory, but he did say that the fight against terrorism was far from over and that borders remain porous. And the main point that he made really was that the political progress in the country is being stymied, that it does need to move forward as we still have this divided country. He said that national reconciliation is long overdue. That was needed to heal the wounds in the country. And he rounded it all off by saying that 2017 he thought was a year in which he could be encouraged. He felt that it was a year that had to be full of big decisions and political breakthrough for the country to try and move forward.
Now, Nick, just how important is stability in Libya for the EU's migrant deal with the country?
Well, very important, and indeed we are beginning to see much more pressure coming from the European Union to try and stop the flow of migrants. Just recently they gave 120 million euros to try and support a range of issues in Libya, but really it is this problem with refugees and migrants using Libya essentially as a transit hub coming into Europe that is one of the big things that the EU really wants to try and tackle. They believe, therefore, that stability and political progress in the country is the solution. If that gets sorted, then it will essentially dry up the supply of migrants and refugees crossing over from Libya. And to that extent, they are also threatening potential extra sanctions against Libya. They say that they could do anything that is necessary to help support peace, stability and security in Libya. Indeed, we've just recently heard from the EU foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, who said that the EU really needed all players in Libya to try and find common ground to unite the country. But they are offering to do as much as they can to try and help Libya. But it is this migrant refugee issue that they really do feel needs to be tackled within Libya to stop the knock-on effects that we're seeing in Europe.
And finally, Nick, what can you tell us is the latest on Egypt's efforts to lift the arms embargo and get the UN-backed government to accept General Khalifa Haftar as the head of the army?
Well, in many ways, we're seeing more countries rally behind Egypt on this to try and get Haftar in position. In the last couple of days, we've seen Italy very vocally come on board this plan. The foreign minister of Italy saying that it was really Haftar who could bring the country together. Some in Brussels are also saying that this is a good plan. Russia supports the move. There are close ties between General Haftar and Moscow. The big problem, though, is that Haftar at the moment does not recognise the UN-backed government in Tripoli. And without that, the United Nations themselves are very unlikely to want to support any plan in which Haftar is essentially taking control of the whole country. So we're seeing more countries come on board, but at this stage, the United Nations probably will not want to sanction such a plan.
All right, Nick, thank you for keeping us updated. Nick Harper joining us live from New York.